all, we'll read Exodus 20 and verse 12. And that scripture says, Honor thy father and thy mother, that thy days may be long upon the land, which the Lord thy God giveth thee. And now, let's flip over to Ephesians chapter 6, verses 1 through 3. Children, obey your parents in the Lord, for this is right. Honor thy father and mother, which is the first commandment with promise, that it may be well with thee, and thou mayest live long on the earth. And what I would like to point out to you and me today is honor thy father and mother is one of the 10 commandments. God put it right up there with great importance. And so it's not just a suggestion for you and me on how to live a good life. It is a commandment of God. Honor your father and mother. Honor your parents. And so, although this is Mother's Day today, I'm going to just talk about parents in general. And we are instructed to honor our parents. But at the same time that God puts this requirement on us, He tags along a promise. Do this, that it will be well with you. So He doesn't just bark out some instruction and say, do it because I said. He said, do this, that it might be well with you. And so one thing that stood out to me as I began to study and ponder, and this message came together a little different for me. I typically have some study material, and I read, and I look for illustrations to drive home the point that I'd like to make, and I pray and ask God to help me, and that's typically how I put a message together. But it didn't really matter. This time it didn't seem like whatever I read wasn't exactly what I was feeling drawn to. So finally, I got myself a notebook and an ink pen. And I went into the study and I just began to write. And as God prompted me, I would write it down. So I feel like as simple as this message is today, and it is a very simple message, but I feel like God whispered it to me so I can share it with you, as simple as it might be. But one thing, as I just began to sit and ponder and write a note and think and write a note, one thing that stood out to me was Jesus Himself honored His Father. He was in the Garden of Gethsemane, and He prayed so hard that His sweat became as blood. And He really didn't want to have to suffer a crucifixion. But what did He say to His heavenly Father? He said, not my will, but yours. He honored His Father when He was about to suffer excruciating death for you and me. He honored His Father. And in mine and your language, He said, I really don't want to, Father, but I will if it's what you want me to do. So Jesus honored His Father. Let's you and I do the same. Let's honor our parents. Most of y'all probably know that for a period of about 10 years, I was a single mom. I was a single mom from the time that Jordan was 14 and Leah and Leisha were 11 for the next 10 years until they were age 24 for Jordan and 21, Leah and Leisha. So I'm sure you've noticed that's some really formative years. Teenage years. But my children honored me, And I have told them over and again, you will walk in God's favor for how you've treated me. You will. I believe that today, and I see God do it over and again. They walk in God's favor for how they've treated me, because God said, do this, that it will be well with you. And I'm sure many of you here today can say the same about your children. They walk in God's favor because of how they've treated you. And that's an important thing to remember. So, what is honor? And again, these are things I just wrote down. So this is me working, seeking the Lord and writing notes down. If we honor somebody, we'll love them. Their well-being is going to matter to you and me. We will respect them. We will show them respect, even if our opinion is different. We will be aware of their needs. We won't always just be wondering about what we need. We will be aware of their need, that person that we choose to honor. We will take the time to know what makes them happy. There's a book that's written primarily for the aid of married couples, and it's called Love Languages. But love languages can apply to anybody that you want to show them you love them. What you do is you figure out what makes that person happy. And that's their love language. And here's the example I came up with. A man might wish his wife loved to fish. He might want a fishing buddy. And so if she took the time to bait a hook, and I'd be saying, ooh, will you fix that? Ooh. But if she takes the time to do that and go fishing with him, that could say, she loves me. She's doing something I like to do. And at the same time, she might like it if he vacuums the floor. And that might just be like the most boring thing ever to him. Who could ever be thinking I love them because I vacuumed? But it matters to her. So if she goes fishing with him, and the next weekend he pulls out the vacuum cleaner, even without being asked, and he starts vacuuming the floor, they have spoken love languages to each other. They have honored each other. That's how it works. Find out what the person you want to honor, your mother, your father, find out what they enjoy. Is it a call in the early morning? Is it drop by and drink a cup of coffee with them? Is it coming to share special occasions like you all have today? What makes them happy? And do it. Whatever it is, just do it. Now, parents here today, God gave us this wonderful gift. He told our children for them to honor us. But when He gives us a gift such as this, it comes with responsibility. So what all of us here today who are parents who will be honored by our children in accordance with God's command, we must be good stewards of that honor. We need to live worthy of that honor. We need to lead by example with the life that we live in just everyday things. And here's one thing, in my opinion, that's really important to remember. You are leading by example, be it good or bad. You are leading. You don't just get to lead when you get it right. Somebody's following, somebody's watching, even when we get it wrong. And we're human. Sometimes we get it wrong. But when we do, we need to talk to our children, talk to our families, our persons in our life that we've disappointed, and say, I really messed up. I want you to forgive me, and I'm going to try harder. I've really messed up. Admit that you're real, and be a good steward of the honor that God has ordained for you to have. As parents, as people that someone is honoring you and looking up to you, you're going to have all kinds of opportunity to teach them things. First of all, I think one of the most important things you can ever teach them is the importance of being born again. Treasure your own salvation and let people in your home and family see being saved and born again means everything to me. Teach them by your example. You can show them how to have courage to do right and stand by your family even when it's hard. And we can look at Esther. She had to go before King Ahasuerus, and she took her life into her hands at that moment, because she had not been called by the king to come into his presence and speak on behalf of the Jews. So he could very well just say, off with her head. She came in when she wasn't supposed to, but she was courageous enough to do it anyway, to speak on behalf of her people. So show courage by how you handle things. You can teach people how to be courageous. Leah had a saying that I think she's even had it maybe on her Facebook, that says it's not courage if you're not scared. So you'll have to do things that are hard, make you afraid, but have courage to do the right thing. You can show people how to have peace in the midst of a storm. Job is a good example of that. His world fell apart. His so-called friends told him all these reasons that, it's your fault and all this kind of stuff. Who would want enemies if those were your friends, the way they talked to Job? But Job had the attitude, and he said, even if he slays me, I'll still trust him. So, will you have peace in a storm that you can say, even if he doesn't come through for me like I want him to right here, I'm still going to trust him? You can show your family how to forgive when someone hurts you, because somewhere along the way, your family is going to encounter people who hurt them. And if they have seen your example of forgiveness when you're hurt, you can teach them to have that same attitude. You can teach them to pick up the pieces when it feels like the world just fell apart. Because of your attitude, you can show your family, people who are watching, pick up the pieces anyway. I'm reminded here of David. He had a small child, a son, who became sick. Uriah's wife had this child with David, and the child was sick. And David fasted, and he prayed, and he just laid out on the floor. He wouldn't even hear the people who wanted to talk to him. He wanted God to heal his child. The child died. And the servants, they had seen David's demeanor while he was just seeking the Lord to heal this child. And they thought, I don't know what in the world he's going to do when he finds out the child's dead now. And they were kind of whispering. And David saw that. And he picked up on that. And he said, is the child dead? They said, he's dead. So what did David do? He got up, washed his face, ate. His servants said, we just don't really understand. Your child was sick and about to die, and you were fasting and praying, and you didn't want to hear anybody talking to you. And now he's dead, and you're just going to get up and wash your face and eat? David said, I was fasting and praying in hopes that God was going to heal this child. But he has not. So at this point, he can't come back to me. But I can go to Him. Pick up the pieces, people. Your loss might not be someone died, like Brother Greg just experienced just this week. That might not be your loss. But a shattered hope can be just as devastating. Sometimes it can feel like somebody died when they didn't, just because hope has been so shattered. But what do you have to do? Get up, wash your face, get something to eat, and go on and say, I can't undo what's been done, but I can go on with the Lord from here. Be an example of what to do when dreams and hopes are shattered. Have a steadfast faith. Be an example of steadfast faith. Let's look at Ruth. Her husband died. She's left alone now with her widowed mother-in-law. And she's about to leave her homeland and go home with Naomi. And she said, your God will be my God. I'm going with you. And they got back to the homeland and she got busy gleaning in the field. She was doing what she knew to do. And she had a steadfast faith it was going to be okay. She had a steadfast faith that she had heard of a God through Naomi that she could put her trust in. So she did. And one final thing that I'd like to encourage you to do is I would like for you to live an example to show those who are watching you that there's power in prayer. There is great power in prayer. R.W. Shambach tells of a time that he was in revival. And I really enjoy listening to Brother R.W. Shambach. But he tells of a time that he was in revival. And right in the middle of his sermon, this lady comes down the aisle. He's preaching, and she interrupts him in the middle of his message. And she said, something has got to be done, and I need you to pray. My son is about to be put to death for a crime he did not commit. And at 10 o'clock in the morning, he's going to the electric chair. Something has to be done. He's exhausted all his appeals, and I'm here because I need you to pray. And R.W. Shambach, in his bold faith of the moment, said this man should not die. Let the real guilty person be revealed. And he said, in his heart, he thought, what in the world have you done? You've declared that in front of this whole revival crowd to a mother who said he's going to die in the morning at 10 a.m. if something's not done. So they prayed that prayer, and revival went on. 2 mornings later, Brother R.W. Shambach stopped by, I think, a little cafe or something to get a cup of coffee, and he picked up a newspaper. And the headline said, person not guilty escapes the electric chair. However the headline read, guilty party comes forward. Oh my goodness, the power of prayer. Be that example to show people there's power in prayer. That article went on to say that the district attorney's office got a phone call from a man who said, you're about to kill the wrong man, and I just can't let you do that. I'm guilty. And he described the crime to that district attorney so the district attorney would know he's telling the truth. He told him things that he would only know if he was guilty. And that man was spared because his mama burst into a revival service bold enough to stop the preaching and say, we got to pray now. He's going to die tomorrow morning, 10 a.m. Be an example to those who are watching you that there's power in prayer.